Hey, this is Clint, and I'm glad you joined me for this video, The Biblical Millionaire Blueprint. You know, in conversation that I have with a lot of people, especially young people, young couples, when they talk about investing and saving, one of the first things that they say to me is Clint, I don't have enough money left after I pay my bills. There's nothing left at the end of the month. And besides that, Clint, the cost of living keeps going up. And I don't have any money to get started investing. And they're thinking, well, I got to have this massive amount of money to begin investing. Well, the question that I want to ask you and ask a person like this is this. Are you interested in building excuses, or are you interested in building wealth? So let's hit some of these excuses before we dive into this. Think about this. As far as the cost of living, the cost of living since the beginning of time has gone up. I mean, if we go back to 1901, in the United States, the average factory worker worked for 9 cents an hour. 9 cents an hour. The average loaf of bread the cost of a loaf of bread at that time was 2 cents per hour. So we have this, that both what a person's making and what they're buying is increasingly going up. People have said to me, well, Clint, you know, in the 1990s when you built your house, you know, you just had less expenses. It was easier back then. Well, you know, I shared that with my dad, and he said, you know, coming out of 1980 to 1990, if you wanted to have a mortgage for your home, you were looking at over 10% for a mortgage for your home. So now when you pay on a 30-year mortgage, you over triple the price of your home. Now we have interest rates that are 3 to 4%, and that gives us an advantage there. So there's many things, if we make excuses, if we build excuses, we're not going to be able to build wealth. So we want to keep those things in mind, because here's the deal. Once you decide I'm going to build a case for not building wealth, you destroy your opportunity for financial freedom. So you might say, well, Clint, how do I get started? I mean, I think I need a massive amount of money. What do I need to do to get started? Well, the first thing I want to introduce you to is this, is I have in my hand here, take a look at this. What do you see? Most of you will say, well, I see an acorn. Well, let me ask you this. What does God see when he looks at this seed? Many of you will say, well, he sees a tree. But even thinking farther than that, when God looks at this, he sees a forest. Just like I have behind me, a forest. So there's great potential in a seed. So I want you to look at your financial life in the same way. You have to start with the seed that you have. One thing about seed is that it's always tiny. My son grew some plants this past year, and the seed was just, I mean, you could have 100 of them, and it wouldn't take very much space on your hand. And he put a couple of those in the ground, and it grew a 6-foot plant. The plant was over 6 foot tall. That's the potential of a seed. See, everything that God starts with, he starts with a seed at the beginning of creation. Everything reproduced after the seed. So when God wanted to say, okay, today we have 7 billion people on the planet, did he start with 7 billion people? No, he started with Adam and he started with Eve, and he multiplied from there. So there's growth that happens with a seed. So that's the potential that you have. So you say, well, what do I need to do financially as far as the seed that you're talking about? Well, most people say, I have nothing left after the beginning of, at the end of the week or the end of the month after I pay my bills. So I ask this question, what is nothing? Well, most people say, well, I only have $100 left. Okay, that is one source of seed we're going to pull in, and we're going to start with that seed. Now, what's another thing? You know, instead of picking on cigarettes, I'm going to pick on alcohol a little bit. I personally don't do this myself, but if someone goes to a bar on a Friday evening and they buy 3 drinks and the drinks are $8 a piece, they have $25 for the evening, maybe even plus tips. The next night, they do the same thing, and maybe they're buying the same thing. They have $50 for the weekend. Well, what if we took that drink, that cost of just drinks, and we put that into the seed for your investing? What if you decided for a year, oh my goodness, that we are not going to have cable TV? How much could we save doing that? What about the times that you have an opportunity for your company? Every company gets busy, our company, and we say, hey guys, you can work on Saturdays. Now you have an additional chance to pull an extra seed, and let's just say, for round numbers, that you have $200 per week as extra seed. Well, most people scoff at that and they'll go, well, Clint, what am I going to do with $200? That's nothing. That's the common response that I get. Well, take a look at this. If you want to be even just a viable investor to just get started, I mean, really, you can go online and you can start investing with $500. I mean, you only need $500 to get started. But if you want to really have some money to work with, $10,000 is a good number. And most people scratch their head and they say, oh my goodness, $10,000. I've never even saved $10,000. I don't even know what that looks like in my account. Well, here's the deal. Take that $200 a week, time the 50 weeks, and you do this for 1 year, you now have $10,000 saved as the seed to be a viable investor. And you can begin the journey. Because remember, this acorn is going to multiply into a forest. And it takes time, but you want to begin to gather different types of seed together so that you can begin this journey. Now, we're not going to talk about how or what to invest in. I just want to get you started because you got to be prepared. And most people, companies or brokers that you sit down with, they're going to try to sell you a product, which is what their job is to do. That's what they want to do. And the big thing for me is I don't want to sell you on anything. I'm going to give you the experiences that I have had in my life. I've tested things. I've failed in them. I've tried. I basically have been a self-taught investor using biblical principles. So obviously you have the opportunity to purchase the Biblical Millionaire training online, but the main thing that I really want to sell you on is the Word of God. Because the principles are there, the same principles that worked 2,000 years ago still work today. The techniques are just different. So gather that seed that you want so we can continue on this biblical millionaire journey.